This is sponsored by 3 different people. And the important thing is for me that as for our resort and for our community, for our region, tourism is very important to us. And so being good at tourism is very important. So we bring in good speakers every year to help promote that philosophy. So today is no exception. I'm telling you that we have a great speaker. And I could read his credentials, but I think he's that good. He's going to prove himself today and show you how good he really is at this. So this is Ted Janusz, and I want to welcome him to the resort, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ron.
You're very welcome.
I am so glad that Ron did not read my introduction because my wife was in the audience once, and after she heard my introduction, she came up to me and she said, "Now I know not to believe all those other introductions from all those other speakers either." But just a little bit about who this guy is standing in front of you. This is my family. The most unusual thing about my family is I have a 7'2" son. And people come out of the woodwork and ask him 2 questions. What 2 questions do you think he always gets? How tall are you, man? Do you play basketball? Yes, yes. In fact, we were in Chipotle the other day. A guy behind us started laughing. Just have to ask. We said, yeah, we know. I said, Steve, you just have a t-shirt made up with the answers on the back? It'd be so much easier. Anyway, here's a picture of him at the John Glenn International Airport in Columbus, Ohio, where I'm from, right before he got deployed to Iraq. Fortunately for his sake, for his mom's sake, his sister's sake, and my sake, he did come back successfully. But thank you. But that's all I want to say about me. I want this to be about you. And I thought, to get the brains engaged on a Monday morning, we could take a little quiz. Now, let me set this up for you. It's a series of 4 questions they ask 4-year-olds. The majority of whom got some or all the answers right. However, 90% of adults missed all 4. Now, Jason, we have smarter than the average adults, right? Okay, all right. So, are you up for the challenge? Okay, all right, here's question number 1. How would you put a giraffe into a refrigerator? How would you put a giraffe into a refrigerator? Go ahead and shout it out. You can be creative, perfectly fine. Any thoughts?
Put the picture in the...
Put the picture in? That's very creative. Thank you. Well, actually, what you do is you open the refrigerator and put the giraffe close the door. Yes. And this question's wet test whether you tend to do simple things in a really complicated way. It's okay, we've got 3 questions left. We know what to do with giraffes, but how about an elephant? How would you put an elephant into a refrigerator?
Open the door, stick it in there.
I'm sorry, you've got to think like a 4-year-old. Okay? That would be the incorrect response. What you have to do is you have to open the refrigerator and take out giraffe. Close the door. Yes. In this question test, you really think that your questions are actually... Okay, we got 2 left. The Lion King is hosting an animal conference. All the animals attend the animal conference except for 1. The Lion King has this big shindig. Everybody comes out except 1. Which animal does not attend? Because... Yes! Yes! Thank you! Thank you! Thank you! Yeah, round of applause. Now, I brought a prize all the way from Columbus, Ohio, just for you. So let me go deep into my vault here. Deep, deep into the vault. And pull out a pen?
Yeah.
Oh, I can give you that too. But I think this is even better.
Okay.
A fresh, crisp $1 million bill. So once again, another round of applause. Because that's what's really important is the extra pen. Okay. That way you can autograph the $1 million bill. Well, I'll tell you what, we got an exercise coming up. Thank you, Jason. Got an exercise coming up. And thank you, sir. Okay. All right. Well, hey, 1 out of 3. We got 1 left. So let me set this up for you. Now you wouldn't know, I don't think you know about this around here, but in some places they have crocodiles. There's a river you have to cross. But as you can see, it's inhabited by crocodiles. You've got to cross this river, but this is where the crocodiles normally live. What do you do? Oh, you stumped on this one?
What was the question?
Okay, there's a river you have to cross, but this is where the crocodiles normally live.
Okay.
How do you get across? You take a bridge. Well, actually, you swim across. Remember, all the crocodiles are attending the animal conference. Okay, all right. Now that we've got your brains engaged, who's been to these conferences before where they bring some expert? You know what the definition of an expert is? Somebody who comes from 45 minutes away. I must be really smart. I come all the way from Columbus. Okay, so you've been to one of these conventions and they've got some speaker up there and he's the sage on the stage, or he pours and you snore, or he shows up and throws up. Who's been to these things before? Okay, all right. Well, we're not going to do this here. In fact, to show you how different this is going to be, I'm going to ask if you would all kindly stand up and come to the front of the room. Stand up and come to the room. Now, don't worry, this is safe. You won't have to embarrass yourself. Don't just sing or dance or exercise or role play or do anything strenuous. But just getting up out of those seats on a Monday morning will get the blood flowing. Great looking group. I guess all the ugly people come this afternoon. Oh, just kidding, just kidding, just kidding, just kidding, just kidding. Okay. All right, there's two questions I'm going to ask. Two questions I'm going to ask you. There's no right or wrong answers to these questions. It's just what's true for you most of the time, okay? Here's question number one. You tend to be laid back, easygoing, go with the flow, don't worry, be happy. Are you more driven and focused and gory and determined? I know you can go either way, but overall, where would you find yourself? That's question number one. Question number two. Thank you, Jason. See, there's your pen. Question number two. Do you tend to like work by yourself on tasks and projects? Are you more of an individualist, more of a loner? Or do you really have to be around other people to bring out your best efforts? And I know sometimes you go one way, sometimes the other, but overall, where would you find yourself? Okay? Two questions. Any questions on the questions? No. Okay. So if you tend to be laid back, easygoing, like to go with the flow, and like to work primarily by yourself on tasks and projects, you can raise your hand, please. Okay, if we could have you over here on this side of the room. You have a regular seat, go ahead and take it. Otherwise, try not to disturb things too much. These three tables right along here, we'll see how it shakes out. Like I said, if you're already sitting there, go ahead and sit down again. Otherwise, those three tables, these six tables. These six tables. Go ahead and sit down. Sit down, it's gonna take a little while. Get comfortable. So if you're laid back, easygoing, and like to work primarily by yourself on tasks and projects, you could take a seat at one of these tables. Okay, now, each table I describe, it's a very safe job being described, because you don't have to think. Somebody at the table has to think for you. The toughest part about being the job is just getting ideas for everybody at the table. All right? So if we could have a scribe at this table, please. You've been voluntold. Okay? Over here, scribe. Bueller, thank you. All right? You've been voluntold. All right? Thanks so much. It's Stephanie, right? Yes, okay? Over here. I'm like smiling balls here, okay? And over here?
Oh, no, I think it's you.
It's you. Okay, fair enough. All right, that's group number one. You like to work by yourself and you're easygoing. Group number two, you're easygoing, but you really like hanging out with people. You really enjoy being with people. You can raise your hands, please. Okay, if we could have you starting at this table right here. Those three tables, right along here on this diagonal. Laid back, easygoing, but you like people. So you'll enjoy this exercise. First group, sorry about that. All right, so right here, these three. Oh, okay. How about
Is this the driven helm? What?
I said this still works. Okay, these three tables right here. Laid back, easygoing, like to work by yourself. Like to work with people. Okay, these three tables here. Go ahead and sit down. Relax. Take a seat. Okay, if I could have a scribe at this table, please. Who would like to take notes? Thank you. Thank you so much. As long as you can read your own writing, it's all that matters. And then here, who would like to be the scribe? Who would like to take notes? Again, Bueller, thank you. And back here. Who would like to hear a scribe? It looks like you've been vulnerable there. $1 million. Okay. All right. So, wow. That's just 2 groups. We got 2 to go. Our next group. If you like to work by yourself, but you're very driven, focused, go-oriented, your hands, please. Sit down now. Move it. Over there. No, you're in our last group. You're going to be our last group.
Oops.
What do we disconnect? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Thank you, John. Okay. So this group likes to work by yourself, but they're driven and focused, right? So don't both fight over the role of being a scribe. All right? But please, one of you do. Okay? Now, our last group, if I did this properly, you're very outgoing, vivacious people, right? Go party. No, if you go take a seat over there. Hey, what the heck? And if you could please elect a scribe. Okay, scribes, here is your assignment. Given our common behavioral style, you'll find out that you have similarities with the great people at your table. All right? You know, you're the movers and shakers. That's why you're here. So what I'd like is 2 lists. On one side, I would like the positive strengths that you share with the fantastic people at your table. What are some of your good qualities? How, for instance, Ron, in your case, were you able to build this magnificent facility? You know, what sort of attributes do you share? Positive characteristics. It'll be a nice long list. On the other side, some potential downsides. May not be true. Maybe once perhaps somebody circulated a nasty rumor about you. You know what I'm saying? So on one side the pluses, and the other side the not so pluses. Now what I'll do is, I'll give you a few minutes to get your list together. Then I'll tell you what I think are items. We'll compare and contrast. We'll see how close I came, then we'll talk about why we did the exercise. Now something may come up, and you can say it go either way. Put it in that first category as a positive spread. But before you do that, I know we have a very smart group here. Who has read the book, The Millionaire Next Door? Anybody read the book, The Millionaire Next Door? Okay, Dr. Thomas Stanley, and he was doing research for the book, talked to 2,000 millionaires to see what they most likely had in common, see if you can figure it out. Do most millionaires A, have a high IQ, B, a college degree, C, an advanced degree like JD, MD, MBA, or D, are they good looking? Who thinks most millionaires have a high IQ? No takers. Sort of, Michelle?
Yeah.
Okay. College degrees? Advanced degrees? Like a PhD? So all the rest of you think millionaires are good looking? Maybe they could buy their good looks? Actually, it's a trick question. The correct answer is number E, a large Rolodex. They had friends they could call upon when they needed help, and these friends could call upon them. Why do I mention this? Whenever you get a chance to get out of the office and get into a professional setting like this, network! You never know where that next opportunity may come from. Okay? So please take a few moments, if you haven't done so already, to introduce yourself to your table mates, and then come up with 2 lists, scribes. What are our positive traits and our not so positive traits? As they say in New Jersey, talk.
Yeah. Well, I am encouraged. I am that way. Very. There's less headaches. Which one?
Oh my God, how's that working to me? I seriously somebody said that. But so I got here this morning. I did it.
Oh, yeah, that's
But
great.
it's usually the way it is. Okay, it's great. Oh yeah.
I mean, I get it's texture.
Oh yeah.
Easy part.
Do you like your list? Like your list? All right, let's go ahead and get started. First of all, why are we doing this? Well, according to the Carnegie Foundation, 15% of our success is due to our technical knowledge. How about the other 85%? What do you think that's due to? How well we get along with people. So let's talk about people. Our first group, and that's this third of the room, we call analytics. Now I can make fun of analytics because I am one. We're thinkers. We have a high need to be right. We're very security conscious. Our motto is notice our efficiency. We cross every T, we dot every I. We may be associated with analysis paralysis. We subscribe to Consumer Reports. Any famous analytics come to mind? Can you think of any? Well, my daughter came home on break from college, and I asked her, and she said, Sir Isaac Newton. I said, Newton, why Newton? She said, well, because of him we got physics and calculus. Or how about Dilbert from the comic strips? Saw this one strip recently where he's sitting behind his computer, marveling at the technology. You know, the 35-inch monitor, the 500 gigabyte hard drive, he says, I feel a song coming on. People who don't meet, people who are the happiest people, that would be an analytic. Now, the motto of the analytic is get it right. Or, ready, aim, 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 aim. Let's form a subcommittee, aim and fire. Now my daughter, who I mentioned as an analytic, she was the valedictorian of her high school class. She was the type of kid where 2 in the morning I'd knock on her bedroom door and say, Chelsea, that's enough homework for tonight, go to bed. Her older sister, who only graduated 5th in her class, said, Chelsea, once you get the A, quit! Now Chelsea has going back the idea. Like I said, she came home from college and I said, honey, how are things going? She said, Dad, they run the university so well. Only an analytic would answer the question that way. The normal 21-year-old would say, Dad, parties are great. Maybe you wouldn't tell your old man that, but we analytics, we just look at the world a bit differently. We don't get caught up in the office gossip, who's having an affair with whom, and no, we just keep our nose to the grindstone, we get the job done. And we get rewarded for doing good work by what? Getting more work to do, of course. We can't say no. If we were an animal, it'd be something like a wise owl. Now, I was at a seminar recently where the person speaking obviously was not an analytic because he called us Seymours. Seymour? Yeah, no matter how much data you show an analytic, they always want to see more. Yes, but let's see how close I came. So, Rochelle, you're our first scribe here. Tell us what some of our positive, look at that, tell us what some of our positive characteristics are.
Follow direction, detail-oriented, list makers, loyal, works well one-on-one, double checks everything, and loves routine.
Yeah, so what could be a downside to being one of us?
Pretty much all of it.
Okay.
No large groups, introvert, worries, easily takes the job home, needs routine, and won't ask for help easily.
Yes, yes, thank you very much. Yes, okay. Anything, who's our scribe back here? Okay. Anything else that you could add that are positive traits?
Yeah, ours are all completely different. They're flexible, they're efficient, and they enjoy working at their own pace. And not positives, there's less focus, lack of communication, and you're somewhat limited because you only have limited viewpoint.
Right. Put us in a closet, we'll get it done perfectly, we'll get back to you. Okay? Stephanie, you're our scribe here. Some additional positive characteristics.
I think it's all been covered.
Wow. Okay, anything on the downside?
We want things done our way.
Our way, or, and if you want it done right, yeah, you do it yourself. Okay, anything you can add here?
Boy, I just have a reliable, dependable for positive, stay on task, complete goals, responsible. Some negatives, that we don't delegate, we don't always ask for help.
Yeah, it's interesting how these are all so similar, right? Yeah, it's like universal. Okay, a scribe here. Okay, anything different you could add?
Our strengths were pretty much the same, but we said people expect more out of us as one person than they expect out of others as a group.
Yeah, because you're just so competent.
And again, we always think we're right, but we're
Well,
not.
we are.
We're not always as vocal, maybe.
Kind of let somebody else take the lead, and we're great behind the scenes persons. Okay, and finally over here, Ashley, right?
Most of ours were the same.
Fantastic.
Negative people get to us.
Yes. Okay, so here's what we know about us analytics. We're perfectionistic. We primarily like detail work process or technology rather than people. Unlike our next style, which we call the amiables. Amiables are relators. They're warm, sensitive, kind, compassionate. Analytics are good listeners. Amiables are better listeners. They just want everyone to get along. Peace, love, harmony. Let's hold hands, sing kumbaya. Amiables hate confrontation, and they'll go to extremes to avoid it. Any famous amiables come to mind? I think of Oprah, Martin Luther King, Kenny Rogers, Mr. Rogers. Marcus Welby, MD. Any baby boomers remember the TV doctor? Did you ever see him send out a bill? No! He was an amiable. The motto of the amiable is ready, ready, ready. You could almost hear Mr. Rogers saying this, couldn't you? Aim, fire. And if they were an animal, it'd be something like, oh, a golden retriever. Yes. Okay, but let's hear your strengths. What are some positive characteristics of this table? Who was the scribe here? Okay. Let me bring the microphone around. What are some of our good qualities?
You want to please everybody?
Yes, definitely. Any downsides?
If you never please somebody.
Yes, it could be a positive and negative. Okay, over here, who was our scribe? Okay, so some additional positive characteristics, please.
Positive, love people, socialize, friendly, work harder as a group.
Yeah.
But it's negative to be part of our time because
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? Everybody on board? Everybody happy? As opposed to the next group, I'm doing it my way.
so that requires more communication.
Sure.
And then we're only strongest link.
Yes, but fortunately you have good communication skills to allow that to happen. And then bring us home. What are some additional
positive characteristics millionaire.
So we had friendly,
Yes.
which we already had. Confident, reliable was entered twice, and flexible, observant.
Okay, any downsides besides much too humble?
And negative, too friendly, so get caught up.
And other people's perceptions are that. Not necessarily true, but other people's perceptions are the realities.
Working too much and stretched too thin, so shaking up.
Yes, you're trying to please everybody. Yes, okay. All right, so here's what we know about the amiable. As you said, friendly, calm, loyal, likes to get along with people, hates conflict, gets attached to people, thinks doesn't rock the boat, unlike our next style, which we call the administrator. Administrators are directors. Bottom line, get it done, just the facts, don't mess around, show me the money! There's lots of famous administrators because, well, administrators get things done. And the world rewards results. Any famous administrators come to mind? Well, I think of our president. How would you like to be his apprentice? You're fired. Martha Stewart, Lee Iacocca, General Patton, Steven Spielberg, a director. On the downside, not either one of these two fine gentlemen here, on the downside, administrators are associated with ulcers, they don't get them, in the extreme, they have a type A personality. Do you know what extreme type A personality is? It's actually an inner rebel that tends to cut their lives short. They don't listen well, they lack tact, they're stubborn, their emphasis on dominance, they have theme songs. Either hail to the chief, I did it my way. Their motto is just get her done, or ready, aim, fire, fire, fire. They don't take time to stop and smell the roses. And if they were an animal, either be a pit bull or a lion. Now, the difference between us analytics and the administrators, we analytics like to work on one thing and do it perfectly, right? One thing at a time. Administrators work on 18 things at a time, doing them all well. As a matter of fact, to reward an administrator, give them a 19th responsibility. Because they're very much into success and control. Success and control are very important to administrators. But let's see how close I came. Gentlemen?
You said it in a nutshell.
Oh, wow. So, well, hey, it's your turn to shine. What are some of our positive characteristics here? Oh, they're busy delegating. Okay. Anything on the downside? Nope. Okay. Just get her done. All right, so here's what we know about the administrators. Impatient, bottom line oriented, type A personality, blunt, desires results, let nothing stand in his or her way. So, that finally takes us to our fourth style, which we call the associator. Associators like people things to be exciting and fun. They want to make the grand entrance, they want to be the center of attention. Generally speaking, associators are, well, generally speaking. What are they generally speaking about? Their favorite subject, which is? They tend not to be as organized. They tend not to be into details. They have the big picture, the grand vision, that somebody like the analytic or the administrator has to put it back to them. As a result, their motto is ready, fire, aim. Now, every group has their strengths. The way that associators are so effective is because they've got great charisma. People are just naturally attracted to them. Looks like they know where they're going. People want to come along for the ride. At least it's going to be fun. So, and they're great CEOs, great salespeople, great ambassadors, great motivators, great liaisons, great politicians. The motto, the associators get appreciated or get noticed. As a result, their animal would be I heard it.
Peacock.
A peacock. And again, you know people like this, right? Karen, you need to be in this group. So, what are some of our many strengths? Who is our... Oh, good. I'll give you the microphone because you're going to take it anyway.
Oh, cool. All right. So for our strengths, we put not afraid to talk to people, like to try new things, not afraid to take responsibility. We stick with our tasks until they're done. We notice things that others walk by. We put focused and driven as both a negative and a positive.
Yes.
And we also, yeah. And we also put social as like a negative and a positive.
Mm-hmm.
And we're determined.
Yes, very good. And any other negatives?
For negatives, we also put that we're spread too thin.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we want things done like a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all we have.
Okay.
No,
Oh, wait. Go on, of course.
it makes it miserable for my wife to go to the grocery store with me. Because I want to talk to everybody, and she wants to.
And she just wants to get it done.
She wants to-
She's got a list.
She wants to get it done.
All we need to do is get this. We're getting it.
Yeah, and you'll notice we're sitting on opposite sides of the room, right?
Okay, here's what we know about the associated. They're dramatic, they're talkers, they're locked up about the favorite subject, which is themselves. They tend to be visionary, big picture-oriented folks, tend not to be as organized, tend not to be in details. Now, who sees themselves in multiple quadrants? And it's not good to put people in boxes, but this helps. You saw the universality of what we're talking about, right? It helps us understand human behavior, especially among our customers. Okay? Only about 25% of Americans fit in one box or another. For instance, maybe you know some IT people off the chart analytics. And maybe the only other people in this world they can talk to are other analytics. All right, that sometimes happens. I see a lot of similarity here between the administrator and associate. Hey, break it. 80% that's good enough. Let's move on to something new, exciting, challenging, fun, interesting. Let's go bog down in the details. A continuum here, the analytic administrator, possibly the amiable associator. Where I find myself, the analytic amiable. We tend not to get an analytic associate. Nah, probably wouldn't work. Nor an administrator amiable. Yeah, probably not. And wherever you find yourself, you're probably much stronger in that quadrant 10 or 15 years ago. For instance, who's right brain? Very creative, think outside the box, stretch and try new things. Who's left brain? Very linear, logical, step by step. Okay, over time we tend to become more whole brain. We move more toward the center, and same thing with this. And sometimes we develop stuff because our boss is really strong in that quadrant. We do it just for survival. But let's take a final exam on the 4 customer behavioral styles, shall we? Let's assume each of the 4 styles were a car. What would be some of the attributes of the perfect automobile for the associator? Go ahead and shout it out. What do you think? Characteristics of a perfect car for an associator. Corvette, fast, flashy, red, convertible, right? The perfect car for the amiable. You know, the more, I heard it, the more the merrier. The perfect car for us analytics. Something dependable, reliable, economical, safe, 5-star crash rating. I drive a Prius. There's only one perfect car for the administrator, and it is, well, tank, but they're not legal. Well, do you see where there could be some cause for conflicts between you and your customers? Who has teenage sons and daughters? Who is still teenage sons and daughters? Okay, my teenage daughter Allison, if I would say up, she would say, if I would say right, she would say, well, sideways, because the idea. I thought maybe the issue was that she's a teenager and I'm not, or that she's female and I'm not. But what I realized was it's just a difference in behavioral styles. I'm an analytic amiable. Allison is an administrator associate. She's a lifeguard. The other day she was on the phone talking with one of her students. She, of course, was talking, and he says, ouch. She continues to talk, he says, ouch. She barrels right ahead, he says, ouch again, and finally she said, okay, what's going on with him? He said, you are talking so loud, you are bursting my eardrum. That is my daughter. She does not have an inside voice. In fact, we could be at a sporting event. Alice could be on the side of the field, and I could pick out her voice. Of course, she was the cheerleader. So, as an analytic amiable, I'd be saying to Allison, as administrator associate, honey, can you tone it down, smooth it out, chill a little bit? She's probably thinking, oh, Dad, when are you going to get a backbone? So who has an issue like this? What can you do about it? We suggest a process called mirroring. Become a little bit more like the customer. Don't be fake or phony. And I know you people are not fake and phony, but meet them halfway. In other words, if they start talking slow, you start talking slow. If they cross their arms, you cross your arms. Of course, you may think, well, won't they think I'm making fun of them? No, they'll just say, well, there's something I like about that, Stephanie. I just can't quite put my finger on it. What's the golden rule?
Treat others like you would like to be treated.
Although, Rochelle, administrators have their own version, then who's got the goal makes the rules. But this actually makes something called the platinum rule. The platinum rule. It says, do unto others the way they would like to be done unto, not the way we feel most comfortable. Let me give you an example. Let's say Dilbert was working at the White House. And Trump comes to Dilbert and says, Dilbert, I report, and leaves. Doesn't have time for chit-chat. How's the wife? How's the kids? Do any fishing over the weekend? No, he's got 18, 19 things on his plate. What's Dilbert going to do? Well, he's analytic. He's going to go back to his cubicle. He's going to produce that 300-page tote. He's going to cross every T, dot every I, get it exactly perfect. Is that what Trump wants, Tom? Nope, bottom line, executive summary, you're hired, you're fired, let's move on. So if Dibble wants to keep his job in the White House, he better deal with the boss the way the boss wants to be dealt with, not the way we feel most comfortable. For those of you who are scribes, actually everybody could do this now that we have pens. Thank you, Jason, and paper. You can please write down on the paper there someplace these 3 words. You can write down these 3 words. The words are, I like you. I like you. I like you. And between the first and second words, you bought the pens, you don't even have one? I got the bad.
That's such a gift.
Yeah, such a giver. Okay, between the first and second words, put in the word am. What does this say? I am like you. What does it mean? We tend to like and trust people whom we perceive to be like ourselves. And we dislike and we distrust people whom we perceive to be different. I bet you really enjoy talking to the people at your table, right? You know why? Well, they're just like you. But can you be too much alike? I think so. My wife and her dad exactly alike, always butting heads. Do opposites attract? Wrong. Who has a spouse, a partner, significant other who's the exact opposite behavioral style of you? Oh yes, me too, me too, me too. Like I said, I'm an analytic, amiable. Both my wife and daughter are administrator associators. In fact, you'll love this. My wife's motto is, I may be wrong, but I never doubt. That's my wife. See, for long-term relationships, we tend to pick people up pluses where we feel we have minuses. People round us out and make us whole. The key to success in a long-term relationship is you have the same behavioral style. You have the same goals, morals, values, objectives, aspirations. You have those in common. Behavioral style just falls by the wayside and makes things more interesting. Now, don't do what it only took me 20 years of marriage to figure out. I married my wife, Luann, because she was the exact opposite of me. What do you think I spent the first 20 years of our marriage trying to do?
Change her.
Rochelle, what were you 23 years ago? How stupid was that? There are synergies and there are differences. For instance, just like with your husband, we go to a social gathering, I wind my wife up, she walks through the door, she's the life of the party, takes all the pressure off me, it's wonderful. And customers will give you cues as to what their behavioral style is, right? I was doing this session in Dallas recently, and the organizer comes in and says, I just love seminars, we're gonna have fun today! What style do you think she was? The associate, right? Went on to Houston, the organizer comes in, barely says a word. Sets up the AV, the handouts, the pens. What style do you think she was? Probably an analytic, right? So if I would have gone to her and said, hey baby, I'm glad you're here. We're gonna rock now. She would have gone, whoa. In fact, I was on a sales call recently when the prospect started yelling objections at me even before he entered the room. What style do you think he was? Administrator, right? What style did I say I was? Analytic, amiable. So my natural reaction was, oh, Tom, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset you. I'll just escape out the side door. Okay? You have a good life. Then I thought to myself, you know what, Ted Burry called him a sales call. So what I did was I went over to Tom's desk. I picked up a book. I slammed it down and said, Tom, let me tell you something. I saw this transformation. Tom puffed up his chest. All right, an administrator just like me. Let's go at it. He didn't know that I was an analytic amiable. He thought I was an administrator just like him. This stuff actually works. But like I said, I didn't want this to be about me today. I want this to be about you. So what I'd like you to do at your tables, and everybody take an opportunity to do this, answer 3 questions. 3 questions. Here's question number 1. Given what we just discussed, are you an analytic, amiable, administrator, associator, or some combination? Analytic, amiable, administrator, associator, or some combo? That's question number 1. Question number 2. Given that your predominant behavioral style or styles, what might someone complain about the actions of that particular behavioral style or styles? Question number 3. What could you do about it? All right, so the 3 questions are, what's your predominant behavioral style? Are you that of an analytic, amiable, administrator, or associator?
Question number 2, what might someone complain about? Your spouse, a coworker, a customer, about the behavior of that spouse or spouse. And then third, what could you possibly do about it? Go. My goodness, I turned you all into analytics.
This is a group project, right?
Well, of course, if you're an associator. I'm surprised you're even following the rules. You know, it's interesting how this works. Before you get into this, it's interesting how this works. For us analytics and administrators, we have policies, procedures, rules, regulations that need to be followed. Right, Rochelle? For the associator, those are guidelines. Rules are meant to be broken, no big deal. In fact, I had one attendee, she ran the department. She, of course, was the administrator. Everybody else on her team were associates. What she learned was before she started the Monday morning meeting, she had to say, "Good morning, everyone. How was your weekend?" To let them talk a little bit. If she tried to get right to business, they would tune her out. You see how this works. Okay, so yeah, you can either do it as a group project, or this group over here, they're still on independent study. Either way, it does not matter. Just answer the questions.
Yeah. At first I was thinking, when he described it.
It's just that I don't agree.
Karen's definitely that's her possible. Yeah, and that's like she said, you know, no.
Maybe I should walked in, stopped at the door, and they went.
Okay, well, hopefully you gained some good insights there. If you would like to follow along, we have the hymnal right here, but I won't ask anyone to sing. So halfway down the page, we got to cover here. Halfway down the page, let me just go through the paperwork very quickly. We also have these cards here. I would kindly appreciate some feedback, especially written feedback on the back of the cards, if you could rate the presentation. I'm from Shepherd Presentations, a wonderful organization. My colleague, Shep Hyken, anybody besides Karen familiar with Shep Hyken? Okay. He puts out a weekly newsletter. Who receives this newsletter? Fantastic, right? Great customer service tips. If you would like to receive it free of charge, very little promotion or advertising in the newsletter, right? Yeah. Just fill in your email address, your name and your email address, and I'll pick these up at the end of the session. And then this other card we're going to talk about as we wrap up today. But if you'd like to follow along, halfway down the first sheet, by the way, who's gone to these conferences before and you take notes, then you stick with all those notes from all those other conferences you've been to and never look at them again, be honest. Who's done this? All right, well, just the mere fact that you're writing things down means you're analyzing and synthesizing on the fly, right? More likely to become part of your long-term memory. But certainly do not feel pressure to do so. By the way, we also have these devices called smartphones. There's one back in the room there. If you would like, feel free to take pictures of any of the slides as well as we go through this. And I'm from the East. I tend to get excited about this stuff. I talk fast. Please slow me down. I was so excited to come here. I was having a conversation with another speaker in the office. And he said, you know, I've had to hear with those East Coast type A, high-stress, high-strung professionals. And I said, I'm so happy I get to come to South Dakota and be with real people. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. Unfortunately, on Wednesday, I get to go back to the East Coast. I'm presenting to the FDA. That's why I'm so happy to be here. Okay, so let's get back to it. And please, at any time, like I said, if I talk too fast, you want me to clarify, raise your hand, okay? Because I want this to be about you. This is John Wanamaker. He was a famous department store magnate back in, where, Jason?
No, that was Wanamaker.
Wanamaker is what city?
What's that?
Your city.
Oh, Philly.
Yes. See, he's even forgotten about home. You've done such a great job with him. John Wanamaker, I think you'll be able to relate to this, said 50% of my advertising dollars are wasted. The problem is I don't know which 50%. You can relate to this? Okay, but there is a form of marketing that works 100% of the time. All the time. What is it? Say it again, Michelle. Yes. Now, of course, with social media, as a matter of fact, we're actually live streaming this on Facebook. Did you know that? It's become a world now. And here's why it works. People are 6 times more likely to rely on the judgment of others making a buying decision. As a matter of fact, 80% of consumer choice is the result of personal recommendations. And I found this out recently when I took my 7'2" son into Home Depot back in Columbus, Ohio. We needed to get a new weed whip. So I walk in there with my son, and there on the wall there's a collection of 12 of them. And Dad, as usual, is totally clueless. My son goes off by himself with his iPhone, punches in a few buttons, he comes back and says, Dad, that's the one we want. It got 4.8 stars. My son would rather listen to people he doesn't even know than pay attention to advertising. Here's why it works. The average person has a direct sphere of influence of 52 people. Now, if you doubt that, imagine your list of friends on Facebook or the number of people you have on your email list. I bet it's more than 52. As a matter of fact, if you're an average American adult, you know 400 people. And if you assume each of those 400 people know 400, of course there'll be some overlap. Just to keep it simple, you now going to be in a network of 160,000 people. Between the two towns here, the combined population is what? 3,000? Compare that to 160,000. You see what influence you possibly have. If you assume each of those 160,000 people know 400, you're up to 1/3 of the U.S. adult population. And what are people more likely to spread about your business?
Negative.
Yes. Yes, Rochelle? Your average satisfied customer will tell 5 to 8 others. Your average upset customer, if you have any, will tell 10 to 16. In fact, 1 in 5 will tell 20 people how upset you have made them. And now, Jason, as you know, with social media, it's even easier, is it not? Just ask United Airlines. More about that in just a bit. Yes.
You know, in fact, if I were an airline employee right now, I would just assume everybody has a smartphone with a camera and watch what I said and what I did. Anyway, Bob Parsons, the CEO, former CEO of GoDaddy, said, work hard to please your customers. Right now, GoDaddy has 12 million customers. They are our biggest evangelists. Now, here's a guy who spent $3 million on a Super Bowl ad. Who remembers seeing Danica Patrick running down the street with a bunch of bodybuilders? Well, anyway, Bob Parsons said 70% of your business is word of mouth. Here's why it works. If your product or service fails, your customer wins. It's pricing paid to others. But if your product or service soars, your customer roars loudly and proudly. Did you know there's only a 1 in 26 chance that if you have an upset customer, they'll tell you? They'll tell everybody else, but they won't tell you because they're afraid you're going to shoot the messenger. So, along those lines, let's take a look at why businesses lose customers. 1% of the time it's because customers die. Although one attendee told me that she worked at a nursing home, her figures were a little different. 3% of the time it's because they move away. Of course, why would you move away from here? 5% of the time it's because a friend or relative told them to go to a different product or service. Of course, why are they getting their friends and relatives to come to us? 9% of the time it's because they found a better product or service on their own. But maybe we haven't educated them as to what all our offerings are. 14% of the time is because we tick them off, so they leave. The surprising thing is how many businesses give up without a fight, because it's 5 to 6 times more expensive to get a new customer than to keep an existing one satisfied. In fact, have you ever calculated the lifetime value of a customer? Who's done this? The lifetime value of a customer? We're into the NBA playoffs right now. Who's familiar with Mark Cuban from the Dallas Mavericks? They did an analysis as to what one season ticket holder amounted to for the club. By the time they figured out over his or her lifetime, all the tickets, the parking, concessions, bringing friends and families to games, one season ticket holder would result in $200,000 to the organization. So, if it costs $50 to keep the guy happy, so what? But in the majority of cases, 68% of the time, why do you think businesses lose customers? Of course, I'm preaching to the choir here. I'm sure you don't lose customers, at least not for anything that you do. 68% of the time, why do you think businesses lose customers? We ignore our customers to death, Ron, so they go away. And I don't know, maybe in this town you haven't experienced this, but back home, I'll go to a dry cleaner. I'll walk in, they won't even look up. They'll say, last name. Walk in next week. Last name. Walk in the week after that. We all want to go to a place like Cheers. Who remembers the sitcom Cheers? How did the theme song go? Yes, that's the environment that you want to create, where customers feel valued. We'll talk more about that in just a little bit. I would also like to suggest to you that we all listen to the same radio station, including our customers. We all listen to the same station. And to prove my point, once again, this is live TV. I'm going to go off on a limb here. I'm going to take a little survey. I'm going to prove to you everybody listens to the same radio station. So, Rochelle, what's your favorite station? Oh, yeah, okay, that's what I listened to back in Columbus. Is it? Sally. What's your favorite station? Okay, see, I told you. Okay, over here. You don't listen. I'll help you are. Okay. You don't listen? All right, how about a guy? What does a guy listen to? Don't listen either. Okay, how about you, sir?
91.1, that's South Florida service program.
Oh, okay. All right, I should probably quit line behind, right? All right, so they prove me wrong. As somebody who listens to the same station, they prove me wrong. You know what its callers are? WIIFM. WIIFM. What's that stand for? Wait. Who said? Yeah, what does the WIIFM stand for? Say it again. Yes, what's in it for me? It's the little radio station that everybody looks at. Our spouses, our kids, our customers, everybody wants to determine what's going to be in it for me. How am I going to benefit from this encounter? In fact, the other day I was riding along with my 7'2" son. I started to say something I swore I would never ever say when I was your age. And I could just see Stephen's eyes roll back in his head. You hear about the old man's good old days. Stephen, when I was your age, we could buy a new car for $5,000. That's great, Dad, but you never bought one for me. I know that if I want to buy one with my son, I got to talk about what? What interests him? Which happens to be video games. And I don't know about you, but I'm still stuck on Pong from the 70s, so it's been a challenge. I brushed up on Nintendo, Xbox, Game Boy, GameCube, Connect, Wii, and last week was playing a video game with the guitar. Guitar Hero, but I gotta talk about what interests him, not what interests me. But who gets sales letters? Not from anybody in this room. But sales letters say something like this. You know, we've been in South Dakota since 1905. The company was started by my great-grandfather. We have 10,000 installations, 15,000 satisfied clients. So what? Who cares? What's in it for me? Who's going to have to write an email when you go back to the office this afternoon? Kind of a stupid question, right? How many emails are sent and received by the average worker each day? 115. You want to judge the effectiveness of that email? Count the number of pronouns. Number of I's versus the number of U's. The more U's you have in there, what's in it for you to do it this way, the more effective you're going to be. As a matter of fact, Zig Ziglar, who remembers Zig? He said, get anything you want in this life if you show enough to the people how to get what they want. In fact, I wish I knew this when I was dating. You know, I thought on a date it was so important for me to show my date how wonderful, intelligent, and charismatic I was. Way too hard, especially for me. What should I have done instead? Show how wonderful, intelligent, charismatic she was, that she would have thought I was as a result. But it's so important to figure out what's going to be in that other person's benefit, because everybody's listening to that same radio station. And what's its call letters?
WIIF.
What's in it for me? Thank you. Who has read this book? Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg, the COO, Chief Operating Officer of Facebook, Sheryl with an S. Everybody should read it, but especially women in business. Definitely read it. There's one passage in the book I'd like to point out to you. In the book, Sheryl said, about a month after I joined Facebook, I got a call from Lori Gohler, a highly regarded senior, it said director, but I put the word administrator in there, of marketing at eBay. I knew Lori a bit socially, but she made it clear this was a business call and cut to the chase. Remember, she's an administrator. I want to apply to work with you at Facebook, she said. So I thought about calling you and telling you all the things I'm good at, and all the things I'd like to do. But I figured everybody else was doing that. So instead I want to ask you, what's your biggest problem, and how can I solve it? What's your biggest problem, and how can I solve it? Sheryl said, my jaw hit the floor. I hired thousands of people over the previous decade, and no one ever even said anything remotely like that. Lori put Facebook's needs front and center, not her own. It was a killer approach. WIIFM always wins. At Schefter Presentations, this is one of our cornerstones when it comes to customer service. We believe that every encounter that you have with a customer is called a moment of truth. A moment of truth. And one of three things will happen as a result of that encounter, that moment of truth. Either you will create a moment of magic, most likely a moment of mediocrity, or in some cases, a moment of misery. A moment of magic, a moment of mediocrity, or a moment of misery. It's up to you whenever you have a moment of truth. Now, I mentioned United Airlines before. Who saw the video of the passenger being drugged off the plane? Okay, that would be a perfect example of a moment of misery. However, in United's defense, I encountered a moment of magic yesterday.